It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome to the Jill on Money Show. This is Jill Schlesinger, and this is the program where we take the mystery out of your financial life. I'm Jill Schlesinger, CBS News business analyst and certified financial planner, and I am joined by Mark Talercio, who's running the program. He's in the background, but he's always there, at least always in my ear. And thank you for listening. So the way that we help you take control of your financial life is by answering your questions. So if you have a question, send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Or if you're on the website, all you need to do is click on the contact button, JillOnMoney.com. See, it's very easy. And we are sponsored here by Facet Wealth. Facet Wealth provides financial planning for pretty much anyone who's got issues. Now, you may not want to pay for that, but hey, it costs money to actually do financial planning. But in the case of Facet, at least it's a flat fee. And at the very least, you are going to get, and it's really the very most, you're going to get a dedicated certified financial planner who is a fiduciary who's going to work in your best interest. Also love the fact that there are no wealth or account minimums. Facet meets you where you are. You can check out Facet Wealth at facetwealth.com. Okay, so what are we up to today? Well, you know, a lot of people have spent the pandemic saving a bunch of money and also paying down outstanding debt. And I think that there's this wild moment for those of you who are in the situation where you may not have ever been debt-free before. And now your big question may be, what exactly do I do with this newfound cash flow? That's what is on the mind of Emily. She's in North Carolina, and we are delighted to talk to you, Emily. What can we do for you?
Yeah, so a little context on my situation. I am 30 years old. I just married my husband last May, and he's 35.
Wait a minute. You got married during the pandemic?
Yes, our wedding went from 200 people to 17.
How much money did you save? That sounds kind of fabulous.
Yeah, actually, that is our entire emergency savings right now, which is great.
Now, wait, in retrospect, are you happier having the emergency savings, or would you rather have had the big party?
Oh, I'm completely happy. There were a lot of tears leading up to that day, but it happened perfectly. And in retrospect, I would go back and do it exactly as it happened.
Ladies and gentlemen, people of non-gender specific origin, please listen to Emily and know that you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on a wedding. You, in fact, could come out of that ceremony with a big chunk of money in savings. So congratulations, and thank you for being a spokesperson for the unromantic way of getting married, which is small family, save the money. Okay, keep going.
Yes. So our first year of marriage, from May of last year to May of this year, we spent, a good portion of our time and effort just throwing any money we had towards our debt. And so we paid off about $35,000 over the course of that year. So we are now debt free, which is
holy smokes. Congratulations. Was that debt, was it mostly student loans or other forms of debt?
Yeah, so my husband and I were both, I was on an athletic scholarship and his parents paid for his education. So we didn't have any student loans, thankfully. It was 2 car loans, a credit card bill, and then a couple medical bills.
What was your sport?
I was rowing. I rowed at Duke.
Whoa, that's serious, Mark. That is a serious, how they talk about crew. They say, it's a total team sport. I'm tall and I played soccer in college. And so the crew coach kind of I spy Jill, and she comes over to me and she goes, have you ever thought about rowing crew? And I said, oh yeah, those are the people who do like double and triple workouts and there's no star of the team. She goes, right, exactly. I'm like, yeah, I'm not interested. Okay. So Emily, the rower, tell me more. What else happened after you saved all this money and paid down all your debt?
Yeah, so that's why I'm coming to you. I guess a little bit more about our situation. My husband and I both work for our local state university. And I have a side hustle, so our combined gross income is about $120,000.
Awesome.
And after all bills and necessities are paid for, we adjusted our budget a little bit after we paid off our debt to have a little bit more fun, but we have about $1,500 left over each month. So we're kind of wondering, what do we do with that money?
So you both work for a state system. Does that mean that you are both paying into a pension right now?
Yes. So
Okay.
my husband has been working for the state for the same institution for 8 years. So he is fully vested. It's 5 years for us.
Mm-hmm.
And he will likely be a lifer in the state system. He loves working at our university, and I can just see him doing this forever. I, however, will likely make a career change once I'm fully vested. I don't want to leave that money on the table. And so I have 2 years left. I'm just going to stick it out, and then I'll probably do a career change.
Okay. So in addition to paying into the pension, do you also contribute to another retirement account? Probably, I guess, a 457 plan for you guys?
We do not. We both have our own Roth IRAs, though.
Okay. So you put money in the pension and then you both are maxing out your Roth IRAs at $6,000 a year?
We aren't right now, and that was kind of part of the question. My husband has his own Roth IRA. He's been contributing just $100 a month, just kind of a set it and forget it.
Mm-hmm.
I opened my Roth IRA after I transitioned job. I switched state institutions, but went from one state to another. And so because I wasn't vested, I had to take that money with me. And so I just threw it in a Roth IRA just to have it somewhere. But I haven't been contributing to that because I was throwing any extra cash towards the debt.
Okay. So is there anything else that is going on that needs attention? Is there, you said you've got money in your savings account. How much money do you have there?
We have about 10 grand, again, thanks to not having a wedding reception. That for us is probably about 3 months of expenses. So based on the third reading of your book, I know I need to bump that up to about 6 months. So that'll be priority number one.
Right. Although, I mean, listen, as state employees that are fairly secure, I would imagine that it's not terrible in many respects, that you have a little bit light. But again, if you want to make a transition, we would like you to get a little more money in there. So you've got this $1,500 a month. You got the savings. What about, where are you living? Are you renting?
So we own our side of a duplex. The other side is owned by his best friend. And so it works really well.
You plan on staying there for a while? And how much is it worth? And what's the mortgage, et cetera?
Yeah, so it's worth about $150,000, and we have $120,000 left on the mortgage. Mm-hmm. We will probably be in the house for another 3 to 5 years. We'd like to move into kind of a single family home at some point, but that will coincide more with when we plan on starting a family. And we've decided we're going to put that off for at least 3 to 5 more years.
You guys are pretty, you're in it. I could tell you road crew. There's no messing around. We'll get back to our conversation with Emily in just a minute. In the meantime, if you have a question that has to do with your cash flow and what you ought to do with it, we'd love to help you out. All you need to do is to actually send us a note. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Or maybe when you're on the website, because, I don't know, maybe you're signing up for the free weekly newsletter. There, you might be able to just click the contact button and we'll get the exact note right from the website. So do that, either our email, go to the website, sign up for our free weekly newsletter. We want to hear from you and we want to talk to you. So don't forget to let us know if you're willing to appear live. Okay, we'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are talking to one of you, and it could be you. Meaning any one of you can send us an email with your question. All you have to do is shoot us a note. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com, or if you're on the website, just click the contact button. And it doesn't really matter what's on your mind. Whatever's on that sort of top of mind, or maybe it's poking around the back. Maybe it's worrying you. Maybe it's causing you to sleep poorly. Oh, by the way, what a great way for me to say that we are broadcasting from the Sleep Number virtual studios. Sleep Number, smart, effortless comfort. Who doesn't want that? So once you send us your question and then you get your sleep number, then you're going to sleep better. So send us your note. Let us know how we can help you out. Okay, right now we are going to continue our conversation with Emily. So here are my thoughts. I like the idea that you're staying at this job until you have that vesting. I think that's incredibly important. We're not saying you've got to stay in there for 18 more years, as you said, a couple of years, and then you figure it out and go forward. I think that with $1,500 a month, I would ideally like you guys to put money towards the emergency reserve fund. As you said, you probably need closer to 20 grand. So that'll be, if you put your $1,500 a month and you just kind of, even if you don't want to do a little bit at a time, if you want to do $1,000 a month into emergency reserve fund, you'll get that done pretty much, by the end of the first quarter. And then the $500 a month, it will go into a Roth IRA. When your emergency reserve fund is completely topped off, you will both max out your Roth IRAs. That's what I would do. And the only issue that you want to keep in mind is that if all of a sudden, it's working and you've got even more money, I think that you're going to likely need a little, how can I say it? A little slush fund for the next home. Obviously, if you've got 3 to 5 years, I think that your 3-year game plan is at the end of these 3 years, you're going to want to have that emergency reserve fund, sacrosanct, 6 months, very boring, savings checking, high yield money market. You can search around for a good deal, but that really cannot be invested. Then you guys are going to max out your Roth IRAs. Where do you hold your Roths right now?
He is with, I think, Franklin Templeton, and I am with a company called Ellevest.
Yeah, Sally Krawcheck. She's been on the pod. Without being blunt and too pushy, like Franklin Templeton, completely not necessary. What would be great for him is just to open a Vanguard account, T. Rowe Price, Fidelity, a low-cost option. If you want to stick with Ellevest, that's fine. If you both want to be in a low-cost option, really just want to keep it simple. Just ideally, you want to have a couple of index funds, build that up, keep going, and, kind of put that on autopilot as well. I think that would be really helpful. So you get those few things done and then saving up a little bit extra money to account for the fact that when you move, presuming this duplex does actually continue to increase in value, you're probably going to need to spend more money on a single family dwelling. So you're going to need a little extra money. And so I think that that's probably what I would suggest. I think that you're in really good shape. I mean, you're tracking the money, you're getting going, and I think you're absolutely right. It is so important that you have some fun along the way. No one wants to live under lockdown conditions for the rest of your life. I'm happy that everyone's saving. I'm happy you're saved. But you also have to be very content with just having some fun and doing your fun stuff. You don't want to be like on a constant diet. You want to be able to have a piece of cake every so often, right?
Right. Can I ask one more question?
You can ask 2 more.
So the one thing, I love calling into your show, I love your show, but I feel intimidated at times because some of these callers call in with just hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in their retirement accounts and brokerage accounts. I know I have at least 30, if not 35 years before I retire. Is there any peace of mind that you can give that, like, we're going to be okay?
Yes, I absolutely can. First of all, I know it can be daunting when you hear other people who are in really good financial shape. And there's like that, just a natural inclination to say, I feel less than, right? You can't help it, but you are in a fantastic situation. And what I mean by that is you're actually cognizant of financial matters, which really does put you ahead of the vast majority of people out there. Then you have now gotten this debt paid off. You have freed up the cash flow necessary to fund the things you want to do, i.e., you're funding your emergency reserve fund, you're funding your retirement. The weird thing about investing and saving is that it's just about forming habits. The hard part for someone like me, someone who used to be in the business of giving financial advice and just talking to people all the time, is that I can't force a habit. It's like saying, you go to the gym the first time. You're an athlete, right? People look at you and say, I'm never going to be like her. What's the first thing they're going to say? They're going to say, oh, look at that Emily, man. She is such great shape. She is so strong. I'm never going to do that. And so the inclination is when I see someone like you, running out in the neighborhood or, in the gym, is that I don't want to feel that left behind. So I'm going to do nothing. That's a very normal reaction. So I'm never going to be that. So I can't do it. But what I think your perspective might be, and I'll ask you that if you were giving someone advice about how do you get in shape, how do you do this, what would you tell me? What would the first step be?
You got to start. You got to start somewhere.
And you've got to stick to it.
Mm-hmm.
Part of financial planning success stories are all about starting and sticking to it. So what I want you to hear from me, this is your Aunt Jill talking, that you have already started. You are sticking to it. You are actually putting yourself in the category of people that I'm going to hear from 20 years from now who are going to come on the air and say, look, I didn't start with much. I worked for a state system and we paid in and we did what we were supposed to do. And little by little, we have, 17 kids. We got them through college and life is good. So I think that it's daunting when you hear someone who has millions of dollars. Listen, when I heard the guy on my other show who said, oh, I bought crypto and I now have $4 million in the bank, I was like, oh my God, why didn't I do that? So you feel like a jerk for not having done that. And I'm going to flip it around and say to you, you are not a jerk. You are in great shape. You're doing what you should be doing. You've started. And now we just want to make this stick. We want you to now keep moving forward. Again, you don't have to live like a monk. You guys can have some fun and know that you're going to get there because you've done this. I actually think that this 1 year, it would be as if you said to me, like, let's just do little chunks. Let's start by going one step at a time. And maybe the first step for you was, oh my God, I'm so upset we didn't have a wedding. And then it was like, well, we have the money in the bank. Now what? And you did little chunks. And I think if we can break this down into little chunks, fantastic. Your next little chunk is, I want 20 grand in my emergency reserve fund. And then your next chunk is, I want to max out my retirement account. And then all of a sudden it's going to be, you're in a new job and you might have other choices and we'll figure out what those next steps are. But we're creating a plan that's flexible enough to grow with you, but the discipline that's necessary, the habit that you're forming, that's the key part of the process. And you're already there. So congratulations, you're already there. Feel better?
Yep, I feel way better.
I hope you realize that you don't have to worry about anyone else's goals but your own. And I hope that from this conversation with Emily, you realize that your financial situation, it's yours, and we want to help you out. So here at the Jill on Money Show, all we ask is that you shoot us your financial concerns, and we will try to answer those concerns and relieve you of any stress. No judgments. Jill on Money. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. And we are hoping that we can just take a little bit of stress off of you. How? Well, we do that by answering your financial questions. And those financial questions can be anything. I don't care what it is. But if it's in your mind, if you would like to just get another opinion or two, because both Mark and I are certified financial planners, then go ahead and send us a note. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Right now, we're going to Jennifer in Florida. Welcome to the program. Tell us what we can do for you, ma'am.
Well, Jill, thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here. I've been listening to you for quite a while. I have a situation to where I'm in this analysis paralysis. I can't figure out what to do with some extra money, whether we should be paying off debt or aggressively saving.
Okay, well, tell me about the us. Tell me about yourselves, what's going on, and we'll talk about the assets and also the debt, the liabilities. What do you got out there?
All right. So I'm 46 and my husband is 55. I work full time and my gross salary is around 80K per year. But my husband is actually on workers' compensation right now. He hasn't worked for the last 3 years, but he's generating some income with workers' comp. And he was recently awarded Social Security disability.
Oh, I'm glad he got that, but that means he really is not well. So I'm sorry about that.
Well,
That sucks.
Thank you. Thank you. But the good news is, we have some income now that we know will be around no matter what happens with the workers' compensation.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll have about $2,400 a month coming in. That's on top of some other things that we have going on. So I have some rental income. We have 2 rental properties that are completely paid off, and they generate
Whoa.
about $12,000 a
Wait a
year.
second. Rental properties. Let's just do one by one. One
Okay.
rental property is worth how much?
One rental is around $90,000,
Mm-hmm. And the other one is worth
about $30,000.
30,000. What
Yes.
could that be? It sounds like a garage in New York.
It's a low income area.
Okay, all right. I'm just teasing. On these 2 properties, you said how much do you make in a year for rental income?
About $12,000 a year.
Is it a pain in the neck to maintain them, or is everything like you got it set?
It's all set.
What has his workers' comp been? How much has that been for you guys?
$691 a week.
$691 a week. Okay, I got it. So on the workers' comp, your salary and the rental property income, is that all the income that's coming in for you guys?
Yes.
How has that been?
Good. There's some extra money at the end of every month.
Okay, so now we're going to go to $2,400 a month. You're still going to work full time. How long are you planning to work, and what do you do?
I'm an educator.
So you're going to get a pension?
Yes.
Oh, good. Very goody. So you're contributing to your pension plan. Are you also contributing to a retirement plan through work, a deferred comp?
Yeah. So I have a hybrid plan. So it's partially pension. I put into a 457 and they match into a 401k.
Great. How much is in the 401k right now and the 457? What are the total amounts in there?
457 is 22,000.
Mm-hmm.
401k is 12,000.
So if you wind the clock ahead, how many years do you have in your system
11.
so far? You have 11. So what's your game plan? Like, how long are you going to try to grid it? Are you going to just say, I got to get to 20 years? Or is there some goal in mind for you?
Well, Jill, that's where it gets a little iffy. Since my husband's 10 years older and with the disability, I'd like to just do another 2 or 3 years there and then try to transition into something remote so I can spend more time with my husband now that he's not working.
Yeah, I understand that. You guys have kids?
2, but they're grown and launched.
Okay. How about your primary residence? What is that worth? And how much of a mortgage still remains on that?
It's worth $180,000 and we owe around $80,000.
Do you know the rate on the mortgage?
1.99.
Get out of here.
Yes.
How is that possible? What kind of mortgage is this?
It's a refinance. We just recently did a refinance to a 15-year through our local credit union.
It takes my breath away. I'm so happy for you. That's great. And it's fixed, right?
Yes.
It's a fixed rate? Okay, good. Let's pretend you're 48 years old and you call it quits. Tell me what happens. What is the pension that you would receive at that time?
At that time, it would be probably around $1,200 a month.
That's not too much.
No.
Is it just a year by year, or are there certain benchmarks? Some municipalities, like every 5 years you get a bump, or, so if you make it to 15 or 20 years or whatever, is it just, a year by year increase for you?
Yes. And I think I have to have 25 years in to be.
And you're never going to make it that far, right? No. Okay. Tell me, any other money that you've got saved right now?
Yeah. So I had a previous employer, and I have about $300,000 in a rollover IRA.
Mm-hmm.
I have about $30,000 in a Roth IRA. And my husband has a 401k with his current employer that has about $240,000 and
Okay.
another traditional IRA with about $40,000.
If you were to retire in 2 years, what would you do for health insurance? Would your system allow you to be on the health insurance through that?
No, I couldn't access that until I'm 60. So that's why I'm thinking I'm not going to be able to really retire. I probably want to find something where I can work remotely, and the amount of hours I needed to get insurance someplace.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Because he's covered. That's
Yes.
fine. Kids are launched, but
Yeah.
it's little old you. And obviously, I mean, essentially $1,200 a month would be like what you would be paying for your own insurance. So that it ain't going to cut it. This is a tough one, right? Because you know what you're going to have to do, right? You have to start accumulating some money and clearing the decks a little bit to prepare for this. So
Yes.
what else is going on? You mentioned some debt. Besides the mortgage debt, what other debt is outstanding?
So I took out a loan against my 457 account.
Mm-hmm.
So there's about $13,000 in debt there, and then we have two car payments. We have a car payment that's around $9,000, and then one that's $25,000.
Do you know the rates on those car loans?
One is like 2.99, and the other one's around 2% as well.
Okay, if you want to figure out what to do with your extra money, that seems to be the theme so far today. Give us a holler. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. If you're on our website, don't forget you can reach us from there. Just hit the contact button and we'll be delighted to figure out what we can do to bring you on the program. Okay, we'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are delighted to continue our conversation speaking with Jennifer. Jennifer is joining us from the Sleep Number virtual studios. So let's find out how we can solve Jennifer's dilemma of what to do next. Did you buy those rental properties for a much lower amount than they're worth right now?
Yes.
Just out of curiosity?
Yes.
Okay. If you look at the amount of money you need to spend in a year, right? You said you've got a little extra money, but if you really kind of focus on this, what do you think is the outstanding sort of obligations that you have just to meet your needs, including the debt? Like, how much do you need a month, really?
Probably around $5,000 a month.
So it's not terrible. So, and you've got extra cash flow. So what is the real question here? Is it should we pay down some debt? Is that kind of the general game? Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking, do I take all this extra money that we have right now and put it all towards this debt to just get out from underneath that? Or because I'm the only one that's contributing to our retirement accounts right now, do we have enough in the retirement accounts where I can just aggressively pay off debt, or do I really need to be aggressively saving?
Listen, you don't have enough in retirement accounts because you're so young. That said, I don't love this debt sticking around. Do you have cash in any account right now that is your emergency reserve?
Yes, we have about $35,000.
And how are you paying the 457 loan back right now? Is it payroll deduction?
Yes.
And the extra money per month right this minute is how much?
I would guess probably about $1,200.
Oh, that's a good number. Okay. So I think what I would do is I'd start myself on that 2.99% loan. I hope that's the $9,000 car loan. I think that I would start getting rid of that as quickly as I possibly could. And then take that remaining $1,200 and split it between the 457 and the other car loan. That $1,200 right now presumes that you are putting some money away into retirement or not at all?
Yes. So I'm maxing out our my Roth IRA and also contributing about 5% to my 457.
I would just keep doing that. I would do both of those things. And I would use the 1200 to accelerate the debt pay down. And I would try to target in your mind getting rid of as much of this debt as possible before, look, ideally, before you retire, the 457 loan is done, as is at least the $9,000 car loan and a good chunk of the 25,000. That's
Okay.
what I think. This is a terrible situation in lots of ways because I don't want you to retire, but I understand why you're going to retire. Right. And I hate to give up pension because, pensions, they just get better and better. But you're not, as we said, you're not going to last 25 years in
Right.
this system. So I think that, if you're willing to work and you're willing to keep a tight grip on your expenses and we delay tapping into these retirement plans, I think this does make sense. Okay. But you're going to have to work from home, obviously. And you may have to keep working longer than you expect. You may need to, essentially for you, keep working for the insurance, which, a lot of people have done. And hopefully you find something that's kind of cool and fun and engaging. But I don't see that, you're going to be like, sipping mimosas, at age 52 and chilling out with your husband. I think that you're going to have to work. And that's okay because you said you're willing to work. So that's perfect. The only other thing that I can think of, and this is why I was sort of asking you about those rental properties, is that they're yielding decent money, rental property, but there's money in there. Like there is money in there. And so, if you had to, I just want to point out that you could pull the trigger, especially if you're making a lower amount of money. Like if you're in a much lower tax bracket in the future, if you're staying in, say, the 12% tax bracket or so, maybe there's a rationale for selling those rental properties just to have the liquidity, just to have your money in hand, especially if your husband is going to need some care going forward. I mean, does he have a condition that you think is going to require spending for you guys?
I don't think so. He's just
Okay.
had some neck surgery, so mobility is limited, but hopefully we've reached the end of that.
So I think that that's something to keep in the back of your mind that, I have a $120,000 pot of money. It's there if I needed it. And I don't think you should be afraid of liquidating that if things change. That is just this big chunk of your net worth that it's generating money. It's great. You have $120,000 in real estate. It's generating $12,000 a year. It's fine. But it could be that you want access to that big chunk of money, especially for you, Jennifer, as you get older, you may need that. So I just want to point that out. It's always there. You don't feel like you have to do it this second, but keep an eye on that. And don't forget that that's a pot of money that is yours and you have access to it. Okay.
I appreciate that. I had not thought of that at all. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's there for you. So don't forget about that. You guys have your estate planning. You got wills and powers of attorney and healthcare proxies and stuff like that done?
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Jennifer from Florida, you give us a holler if you need anything. Just really be careful here. And if it's like one extra year you have to work just to make some of these numbers look a little bit better, it should be okay. But I get where you're coming from. And I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us today because I think it's instructive to hear that, oftentimes, gang, I'll give this advice and I'll say, oh, keep working. This is a very unique situation. It's why it's so great that you came on the air with us. So we appreciate it. And we really do wish you the best of luck. So let us know if there's anything else we can do for you. Okay.
I will. Thank you so much, Jill and Mark.
Okay. We'll be right back after this quick break. During the break, hop on the website, jillonmoney.com and bookmark it. You'll be happy you did. We'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are trying to walk you through your financial life and help you avoid some of the potholes. We don't want you to turn your ankle or anything. Come on, we're here for you. Me, Mark, other set of eyes, 2 CFPs. We can help you out. Just send us your question. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Teresa writes, my husband and I are 10 years away from retirement, and we own a nearly 70-year-old home with $31,000 remaining on our 15-year mortgage. Okay, let's see. We've got approximately $170,000 in equity. The home needs major improvements, windows and siding and updating. So here's the question. Does it make sense to put money into our current home or sell it and find a home that doesn't need expensive improvements at this stage in our lives? You know what? This is such a personal question, Teresa. I mean, number one, do you really want to stay in this home? Like, it doesn't sound like you're that psyched about it, even though you've lived in it for a long time. On the other hand, moving could be an expensive proposition. I notice you don't tell me how much money you have in savings that could actually allow you to do these kinds of things. So, for example, if you say major improvements, how much is major? What does that mean? Does that mean 50,000? Does that mean 100,000? And if that's the case, how much money do you have in savings? And if you then say, "Oh, it's totally reasonable, we could do that." The next question is, well, what would that mean compared to a place that we would want to purchase that's new? It's a terribly difficult market out there. So I think you're going to have to really look at apples to apples, which means we have to figure out what is your alternative. But I'm missing a big bunch of information. A lot of times what people will tell me is that staying where you are and upgrading is actually a better financial deal, mostly because people don't want to do it and it's a pain in the neck. But buying something newer could really price you out of that. So more details, please. Okay, you're listening to Jill on Money. We're going to take a quick break, come back for a whole nother hour of fun. If you've got a financial question, maybe a question about housing, it's Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome back. It's hour number 2 of Jill on Money. And, I have been thinking so much about how fortunate we are that we get to hear from you directly. So even if you don't come on the air with us, your messages are really important. It helps us figure out what's on your minds. If you're thinking about a financial question, yes, of course, the details are specific to you, but I know that other people likely have similar questions and concerns. So in this community here at Jill on Money, we encourage you to ask those questions and to do so and not worry about it. You can change your name. If you want to come on the air with us, that's great. If you don't want to come on the air, that's also great. It's okay. It's just that when you come and join us, the thing that I find really helpful is that I can ask follow-up questions. And getting the information from you, the real underbelly of what's going on for you, that is the essence of trying to figure out the best outcome. And that's kind of the role of someone who provides financial advice. Now, I don't do this for a living anymore. I used to. But, when you shop around and you're talking to financial advisors, to financial planners, to certified financial planners, really their job is to help you really discover what is the priority in your financial life. I know that's what they do at Facet Wealth, where they are able to look at your financial goals and they really want to carve out a plan for you based on your goals. They do that by providing conflict-free planning, asking lots of questions, much nosier ones than even I ask, and also by giving you the knowledge and giving you the security that they're not going to be just selling you a bunch of product. They're going to provide you with financial advice. It will cost you some money. Yep, it's true. It's flat fees, but it's often much cheaper than a lot of the alternatives out in the marketplace. So go check out Facet Wealth. FacetWealth.com is their website. Okay, let's go and talk to Michael, who wants to know whether or not he is being too aggressive in their investment lives.
I have one question that I initially wrote to you about, and in thinking that over, I realized I actually have a few more questions. So let me start with the question I actually asked you about, and that is, in my retirement savings, I'm wondering if I'm being overly aggressive in my fund allocation. And the reason I ask that is this. My wife and I'm 44, she's 46. We both work for the government. We both have pension plans. We'll both be eligible for Social Security. My pension won't be small. It'll be probably over $100,000 a year by the time I retire. My wife will have a much smaller pension, probably $15,000 to $20,000 because she's
wait, hold on a second.
Sure.
So you will be entitled to a pension of about $100,000 a year. Your wife, it'll be $15,000 a year. And then on top of that, you will both be able to claim Social Security, right?
Correct.
Do you have an estimate on those Social Security numbers for future years?
I have not really spent too much time trying to estimate my Social Security. I looked at an online calculator, and I'm guessing combined, it'll probably be somewhere between $4,000 to $5,000 a month.
Let's use it between the two of you, another 50 grand. Okay. How about that? And we'll lowball it. So now at your retirement, and when does that pension kick in? When could you retire?
I could retire with a slightly smaller pension at 57, probably around $90,000. And if I stay till 65, I'm looking probably conservatively, depending on the rates of inflation, 110 to 120,000.
Let's look at the 65 thing. So really, if you look at 65 plus Social Security plus your wife, and we'll lowball your wife a little bit, we're talking about a bunch of money coming in, 175 grand a year. I know it's pre-tax, but is that enough to generally pay your bills, you think?
Oh, absolutely.
That's like you're sitting pretty, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So now let's get back to your original question, which is, are we being overly aggressive? So here's something really interesting that I have found. When I talk to people who work in government, whether it's municipal or federal, or even if you talk to anyone when I talk to people who are teachers, what they'll often say to me is one of two things. I've got this sweet pension and it covers my needs. Therefore, I am using my retirement assets and just rolling the dice and taking a ton of risk, because if I'm wrong, I don't really have to dip into it, right? I don't have like some trigger event called retirement that is I have to take the money out. I could really outlast any downturn. So that's the overly aggressive type of thinking.
Worst case scenario, I can get by exactly on my Social Security and pension income.
Exactly. So that's the case to be overly aggressive. Okay, let's go to the other side. The other side is, well, I mean, I have this pension, I have this Social Security. Why take risk? Risk doesn't seem like a good thing. And since I don't really care about growing this that much, I don't want to take the ride. Therefore, I'm going to be kind of wimpy with my investments in these accounts. That's usually one of two reactions to folks who are in great shape because they have future income. So let me ask you a few more questions, Michael. That is, do you have children?
We have an 11 and 13-year-old.
Okay. Is there some money set aside for college, or are you going to pay that out of cash flow? What's the plan there?
We're planning on cash flowing it. We're actually, our older one is as likely as it is that somebody will know what she wants to do at 13. She is dedicated. I give it a pretty high likelihood that she'll be in the armed services when she graduates high school.
So are you saving anything for 11-year-old or even just a little bit for 13-year-old?
No, we've had discussions, my wife and I, and we both feel very strongly that we're able to cash flow an in-state school. We have not put any substantial savings aside for college.
Fair enough. Okay. Let's wind the clock forward a little bit. So it's 7 years from now. So it's 5 or 6 years from now. Mm-hmm. And now I'm sorry to say you're 50. It's okay. Life gets better in your 50s, I promise you. Would paying for college or something for your kids, would that necessitate you pulling back on the money you have in retirement contributions?
So you're peeling back on the onion just a little bit. Let me give you just a little bit more context. I enjoy my job. I'm happy with what I do. My wife is less so. We're on track to have our house paid off in about 5 years, maybe a little bit less. at that time, the likelihood that my wife continues at her job is less certain. So I think what would happen is she would be able to continue through her job until the younger one graduates. With the mortgage paid off, the extra cash that generates on a monthly basis for us is more than sufficient to pay for college. And then with the mortgage paid off, that then gives her the freedom to leave a job that she's not super enthused about and take some time off, work part-time, find something else that makes her happy.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, so that sounds good. We'll continue with Michael in just a minute, but hey, during the break, here's an idea. Why don't you hop onto the website and check out the resource section? If you are thinking about looking at your financial life differently, if you are talking to your own financial advisor, we've got the questions you need to ask those folks today. And when you have those answers, you may say, hey, I'm in the best, perfect place for me. Or you might say, I need to do something different. So check it out at JillOnMoney.com in the resource section. Lots of good stuff there. Okay, we'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are here to take the mystery out of your financial life. We'll get back to our conversation with Michael in just a minute, but if you have a financial question, I'd love for you to send us an email. And in that email, tell us a little bit about what's going on, but also let us know if you'd like to come on the air and join us, because it's more fun. It's more fun for everybody. So send us an email, ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Let us know if you want to join us on the show. You can reach us through the website as well. But the reality is that you can list a bunch of stuff, but sometimes the follow-up questions reveal more about what's going on for you. And I find that to be really illuminating. And it's one of the reasons why really good financial planners out there, they spend time not just drilling down through data, but finding out who you are and what motivates you and what you want to do next. So let us help you. Just send us that email. And now we are going to continue with our conversation with Michael. We are talking to Michael from the Sleep Number Virtual Studios. How much have you guys saved already when in your overly aggressive account? What are the numbers here?
So my wife used to work for the federal government. She has $200,000 in her TSP account that's just sitting off to the side. Obviously, she's not contributing to that anymore, and that has about $200,000, and it's all invested in the C fund.
Stock fund for everybody else. Yep. Common stock fund.
We each have a Roth IRA, and we each have about $115,000 in our IRA, so $230,000 between the pair of us.
Okay.
We each have a Roth 457. She has about $60,000. I have about $70,000 in mine. Okay. So altogether, all retirement accounts, we're looking at about $560,000 or so.
Fantastic. How much are you putting away right now into your retirement account, into your Roth 457?
We are each maxing out our Roth IRA, so that's $12,000 there, and then we're each putting it, or each more or less putting a comparable amount. So depending on how things are going, another $12,000 to $15,000 a year in our 457s.
Each, you're saying?
That's combined.
Okay. So, $35,000 a year or so going away into those retirement accounts, which is great. Okay. So, and when you say overly aggressive, would you say your wife's thrift savings plan is sort of a good example for me of what most of the rest of these accounts look like, which is basically all stocks?
They're all stocks. It's mostly Vanguard Total Stock Index funds, Vanguard Total International funds, things of that nature. There's no bond funds. There's no cash. It's 100% stock.
Last question, I think. Not really, because I always sneak up on you a few more. I'm like Lieutenant Columbo. Just another thing. Okay, so how about emergency reserve fund?
We have about a little bit over $50,000 sitting in cash.
This is fantastic. So, okay, I'm a wimp. I'm going to tell you I am a wimp in general. But if I were going to be ever like nudging towards your world in the overly aggressive, that this is the case where it's okay. It really is. As long as you don't freak out by the ride. And maybe it's just that as you get closer to the 50s, you might start to say, hey, you know what? I don't love the ride so much. I want to put a few other things in to balance out the low lows. The high highs are always great. You don't need to balance those out. But yeah, the low lows, yeah, you kind of want to balance those out. Is it terrible? Absolutely not. If you can, you know what the risk is, that's fine. You lived through a lot. As long as you feel like you've got that emergency reserve fund, you've run your numbers, your retirement is fine, you're in great shape, I'm not going to tell you don't take the risk, because there is actually the only downside of this is that you got to wait some period of time before you pull these monies out. But you're in great shape. So I'm not even going to wag my finger at you and say, be careful. I just think you know what it is, right? If you feel comfortable with it, I'm okay with it. You're in cheap funds. They're stock funds. Sure, it would be nice if I could tell you, put 10%, 20%, just throw a little bit of a bond investment in there. It would be fine. But I actually don't think it's going to change your life that much one way or the other. It's like you have this. It's like you're Warren Buffett. That's what you are. You know how Warren Buffett is basically like just investing for essentially an infinite time horizon? That's kind of how you are, because you don't have to take this money out until you turn 72. So yes, when you get, in your 60s, do you need to free up the cash necessary for required minimum distributions on any monies that have not yet been taxed? Sure. But that's about it. Like, as long as you're cool with the risk, then I'm cool with the risk. So okay, how's that feel?
That feels great. So let me ask you a question that I think I'm already going to know the answer to. We have about $130,000 remaining on our mortgage. Mm-hmm. We are aggressively paying that down to try and get that paid off in the next 4 years or so. The reason for that is because once that monthly charge comes off our budget, that gives my wife a little more freedom to have flexibility as far as what she wants to do.
Understood. I mean, what's the rate on that mortgage?
3.5.
And how far into it are you?
We have $130,000 left. So,
I mean, how many years?
How many years? I don't know. If we went back to the regular amortization schedule, we'd have it paid off in another 18 years, but we'll have it paid off in 4.
I mean, it's fine. It's the same thing. It's like if you had zero emergency fund, I would say, oh my God, you have to fund your emergency reserve fund. But, essentially, let's do it this way. How about this? I'm happy with you paying it down. And here's a different way of thinking about it. Because you have absolutely no bond position in your portfolio, I'm going to presume that this is like your bond position. Now, you're going to just pay this off. You're going to lock in a 3.5% return. So let's do that. I'm fine with that.
Okay, I like that.
This is shocking. This is a shocking call right now.
That's not the response I expected at all.
Yeah, like, oh, I know you're going to tell me to. No, you got liquidity. You do. And you can just turn it on and off. I mean, look, I also know that emotionally, when one person in the couple is pulling back and trying to make different decisions, having cash and having fewer obligations is incredibly helpful. I went through this myself when I was transitioning from being a full-time financial planner, owning my own company, making a boatload of money, and then entering into media where I started making zero. I was like, holy smokes, I need to have a whole bunch of cash. And I did. And I didn't invest a lot of money knowing that I was going through a transition. So I understand that emotionally you want that there for you, and she wants that. So considering you owe everything to your wife, let's make it easy for her. Okay.
Fantastic. One last question. And
yes, Lieutenant Columbo.
You touched on it regarding when I pull my money out. TSP aside, the 457 and the IRAs are all in the Roth vehicles.
Right.
Given the pension income and the Social Security income, I'm thinking keeping on the Roth side of the ledger is good because I've already paid taxes on that money.
You betcha.
Okay. Do I have to worry about, I hear you talk to people about managing their RMDs. Am I going to have to worry about that at all?
Well,
with the Roth options, does that come in? Or do RMDs even apply to
No. So RMDs don't apply to Roth, but you said your wife had $200,000 in an old TSP.
Yeah.
That's the only place that I saw in your story that there was an issue. So theoretically, perhaps there's a moment where we want to convert that old thrift savings plan into a Roth asset, but don't go crazy with that. This is a small amount of money. Mark makes an excellent point. Mark says, just remember that certain Roth retirement plans that are offered through your employers could be subject to RMDs. So when your wife retires, the first thing she's going to do is take her Roth 457 and roll it into her Roth IRA. When you retire, the first thing you're going to do is take your Roth 457 and roll it into your Roth IRA. And then we will hopefully avoid the distribution snag.
Fantastic.
Happy and healthy for you. Go and be aggressive. Just don't put everything in Bitcoin. That's a wild ride.
I don't have $1 in Bitcoin, and I'm quite content with that.
All right. No fear of missing out for you.
No.
Wish you the best of luck. Thank you for joining us today, Micah. You're great.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Another happy conversation with one of you. Again, you are the ones who make this show so awesome. Yeah, of course, we have guests from time to time. Sometimes they're big names, sometimes they're not such big names, but they're always interesting conversations. But there is nothing more satisfying than the conversations that we get to have with you about your financial lives. And believe me, I know it's hard to do that. It's revealing, but you know what? No one can see you. You can change your name. And it's really easy to do. So just send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. If you're on the website, hit the contact button. Again, the website, jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are here to try to take the mystery out of your financial life. And we do that in many ways, but the easiest way is for you to send us your questions. You can do that via email or through our website, jillonmoney.com. And we'll read those questions on the air. But even better is if you join us on the air live. And that way, there's a couple things that happen. Number one, we can ask great follow-up questions. Number two, you can actually hear Mark's voice, which is always very exciting for people. And number three, sometimes when we're not recording, we slip in a little extra stuff with you. So we might be able to help you out that way. So just send us your note and say, I want to come on the air live. I want to come chat with you and do that. And Mark will do the rest. It's very easy. Right now, we're going to Greg. He's on the line from Minnesota.
Well, thank you, Jill. I am 60 years old, semi-retired. My wife is 10 years younger. Her plan is to work for about another 3 years. In total, we have about $2.6 million saved in various pension funds, brokerage accounts, IRAs, SEP IRA, a deferred comp that I had from working for the Minnesota legislature for a number of years. And I am converting the pension funds that I had to Roth IRAs. Wondering what suggestions you have for that. I'm a little bit, we're aggressive investors, and we have some pretty expensive plans to travel in our retirement years.
You said that you are semi-retired. How much are you making right now?
Probably about $20,000 a year.
Okay. And how much does your wife earn?
She makes about $160,000.
You said you've got $2.6 million saved. How much of that is pre-tax money?
1.6 of it.
Wow. Okay. That's a big chunk. So she's going to work for 3 more years. Are you going to keep working, take in, 20 something thousand a year, or are you going to call it quits in 3 years also?
I'll probably do a part-time gig of some sort.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Tell me some more. Kids, no kids? What do you got?
Kids in college. We have 529 plans that are pretty well funded for them. So I don't feel like, unless they go to expensive graduate schools, I think we're pretty well covered there.
Okay. I feel like kids are on their own if they do that. That's not on you, unless you have tons and tons and tons of money. But really, they got to do that themselves. So I'm taking you off the hook on that. Okay. How about house?
Fully paid for, probably value is about $375,000.
Okay. And in the plans of we have aggressive travel plans, what are we talking about? How much money are you going to spend? I need to know kind of the what's our target here?
Sure. Well, our plan is to maybe spend a month at a time each year in retirement living someplace. It might be Paris for a month. It might be Costa Rica. It might be Thailand. It might be Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would assume that those types of trips are going to run, upwards of 50,000, maybe more.
And what about like your other general needs? Like if forget about the travel, what do you think you need to live on?
Well, on a monthly basis, I would say probably 5,000 to 7,000.
5,000 to 7,000, but you don't have a house. I mean, a payment. That seems like a lot, no?
Well, we do have a vacation home in Florida and a cabin in northern Minnesota.
Oh, you left that out. Okay. The vacation home in Florida and the cabin, how much are they worth?
Vacation home in Florida is probably about $250. The cabin is probably $400.
Okay, $250 and $400, and no mortgage on those either?
Correct.
Wow, you got a lot of house there. Is the game plan that you keep those as is, or in retirement, is something going to get sold to help fund this 50 grand a year little habit that you're going to have?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our plan tentatively is to sell the house that we're currently living in. That's got the value of about $375. So that would take place when my wife retires.
Okay. So when you said I've got $2.6 million saved, right? And 1.6 is pre-tax. What about just money in non-retirement assets?
We have a pretty healthy savings, emergency savings of about $65,000. Other brokerage accounts, checking account, that type of thing.
Okay. So 65 in like liquid assets. And again, I just want to make sure I understand this. So all the other money, this 2.6 million, 1.6 being the pre-tax part of this. And in 3 years, when she's 53, will either of you be entitled to a pension?
No, she will be able to get a pension a few years after that, but it'll be very nominal. She has not been in her current position that long. So it might be $500 to $700 a month.
I mean, so the idea maybe in the way I'm thinking about it is the house that you sell in Minnesota, whatever you sell it for, that gives you, let's say, 8 years of your fund money, right? 50 grand a year, right? So I'm going to pretend the house you sell for 400 and, it's great. And you got 8 years of travel. So I don't have to worry about that. But I feel like you don't have that much money saved for this next period of time, because your wife's really young and you're really young. And so if I consider that like from your age 63 and her age 53, even if like the money that you have right now grows to 3 million, okay, that's not a ton of money for your income needs. So what's your Social Security game plan right now?
Goal is for me to take it at the latest at 70 and a half or whatever, whenever I can maximize it.
And what will that be? What will that amount be at your age 70?
It'd probably be about $3,500 a month.
I got to tell you something. I don't think you have enough money to do. I mean, I think all is well and good. You might have to sell one of these other homes to do what you want to do. I think you're going to have a problem until you get to age 70. It seems to me that there's going to be a lot of heavy duty spending until age 70, essentially. That's like your big time where you want to spend money. And it looks to me, just from the numbers, that you're not going to necessarily be able to do this. We'll get back to Greg's question in just a minute. If you have any sort of question around your financial life, just send us a note. It's askjill@jillonmoney.com. If you're on the website, maybe you're reading some of our columns or you're listening to old shows or watching TV segments, we have a beautiful little contact button. It's in the upper right-hand corner. You'll find it. It's quite convenient. JillOnMoney.com. That's the website, and we will be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
Okay, before we get back on the air with Greg, I do want to remind you of just a few things. Number one is that this show is really about your financial concerns, and it is not necessarily meant to say that everyone who comes on the air is showing you the magical way that you should conduct your finances. In fact, if you want real customized advice to you and what's going on for you, then you can reach out to us directly. Isn't that easy? It's the easier way to get. It's not like, oh, this is Greg's issue. This is Greg's retirement issue, but it may not be your retirement issue. So that's why it's just so much more efficient that, especially if you're thinking about it, it's bothering you, or maybe there's some consternation between you and a partner, we would love to help you out. Send us your emails. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Or if you're on the website, hit the contact button. It's very easy to do. And we encourage you to come on the air, of course, because, you know, we've got this great virtual studio. It is the Sleep Number Virtual Studio. And maybe you'll sleep better just by unloading your financial question onto us. So now let's get back to Greg and let's see how he can get on track to reach his retirement game plan and his goals. So, okay, here's what I do. When I really totally back of the envelope, if I looked at $3 million, and it's not even $3 million because we still have to pay tax on that pre-tax, but let's just pretend you have $3 million, right? And if I say, what will that generate? On a round number, generate about $100,000 a year. Okay. That's fine, but that's like not even accounting for weird stuff happening. So it just kind of gets you there. And if your income need is 70, 80 grand and you're going to be traveling and spending the money from the house, I feel like it's really skinny. I don't know. Like, I almost feel like you could be cutting it close. So how do you make sure that you don't cut it so close? Couple of things. One is that you could sell another property. The other is that you can do your travel goal, but don't do it at 50 grand a year. Maybe do it at 40 grand a year. Or you can say, we're just going to have to spend less money when we're home. Like, our indulgence is going to be this travel thing, but instead of the 6, you said 5 to 7. So instead of 6 or 7, it's really going to be 5 when we're home. That, I think, will help you get there. But it's narrow, again, because you guys are young. You're really young, which means we've got so many decades in the future of financing your lives. How does that feel when I tell you this? Is that a bummer?
Well, no, maybe just a little bit of an eye opener. And I think that your suggestion about cutting back on the monthly expenses, I think is good. And I think that's very doable.
Okay, great. So you guys, you're managing your own money right now, right?
Yes, we are managing our own money, a variety of Vanguard accounts. And that maybe leads to the second question. I am converting state pension money that I had over to, a broker, an IRA, and then I want to convert that to a Roth. Because of our extensive timeline here and our rather expensive retirement tastes, I'd like to keep that in, equities and not do bonds. And so I'm wondering what your take is on that. It's about $660,000. I'd like to convert over to Roths and take the tax hit on that, and not all at once, but over time. And wondering what your advice is as to staying out of bonds and being more aggressive with, stock mutual funds.
I mean, look, that's really rolling the dice. First of all, in the conversion, do you have enough money to pay the tax that's due? I mean, you have some money that's already been taxed. You'd have to have a pile of money to pay the taxes, even if you did it slowly.
Right. And that money does not exist in a separate account or anything. No. But have to come out of our existing living expenses and existing salaries.
I don't know if I would really, I'm not sure I would make myself so crazy about it, because you have a bunch of money that's Roth money. Okay. And I know that you've been doing it, but it would make more sense to wait until your wife is done and she's retired and your income drops way down. And as far as your diversification, you know what I'm going to tell you? You know that I'm going to say I'm uncomfortable with 100% equities. I think that it's more risk than you need. If you do not want to look at the bond market, then that would certainly suggest that if you don't want that, then what you're going to have to do is have some cash on the sidelines, because you can't afford to be 100% equities, because what if we need some of this money and we need to actually get to this money sooner rather than later, and we need to have some money that's in cash. And the problem is cash pays you, peanuts right now. So I would at least, I know you hate, hold your nose, but like, even if you just had an intermediate term bond fund and you put just 20%, that would be a super aggressive portfolio to me. I would still have some bonds in there, just because I know it's not going to give you the same growth. I know that interest rates are rising, but bonds act differently. And there is a real good reason why people like bonds. It's because they provide a fixed stream of income. And as you retire, I think you might want that more and more. Well, maybe you don't want to cut it so close with your own financial plan. Maybe there are ways that we can do something right now to help you out. So take the lesson of Greg. Maybe don't cut it so close. Maybe give yourself a wider swath, and maybe that will give you greater peace of mind. Let us know what's going on in your financial life. Maybe we can deliver that peace of mind that you so desire. Jill on Money. We will be right back. JillOnMoney.com. That's the website. Check it out. Okay, we'll be back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. And before we finish up, we want to get to a quickie. Let's do a quick email right here. And this is from Paul, whose subject line is, gotta love this, fishing tournament. There you go. I am expecting to win approximately $10,000 in a tournament. This must be amazing. This is a fishing tournament. And he says, they said I get a $10.99 for the income. Okay, here's the deal. I caught the fish, but I got to split it with the other guys on the boat. Entry expenses, gas, gear, lodging, dock. Is that all deductible? The check will be in my name only. Any advice for taxes? I'm retired with $100,000 of income. This is quite a question, and it's a perfect summertime question. I'm going to say that the expenses, it is all deductible. But I think he's kind of screwed about the other guys, because I think it's only in his name. So what I think he's going to have to do is he'll pay the taxes on it. And then when he splits the money up with those guys, he's got to apportion the share of taxes that he pays personally to them. You have to keep copious, detailed notes on this, so no one comes back and says, oh, no, you didn't do that. So build yourself a little spreadsheet and say, okay, here's the $10,000. Here's what I spent on the gas. Here's what we spent on the gear. Here's what the lodging, dock, and this is what those numbers are. And that's all the gross numbers. And then you're going to have to pay the taxes for yourself. Then when you split up whatever's left over, you say, okay, and this was the contribution that you have to pay in taxes. And that's the deal. It's sort of funny that we're having this conversation. I mean, I know an extra $10,000 for you shouldn't be so bad, because you're already, if you're married, you're already in the 22% tax bracket. Your $100,000 of income. If you're single, it puts you in the 24% tax bracket. It doesn't pop you into a new bracket. So this should be okay. Just do keep good records. And hey, send us a picture of the fish. Mark, should we put fishing photos up on the website? Yeah, I think we should. Okay, it's Jill on Money. Thank you so much for listening. Our music is composed by Joel Goodman. Mark Talercio is our executive producer. And try to put your hands metaphorically on someone's back today. We'll talk to you next week.